Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on November 19th, 2022 at approximately 2:47 p.m. PST. I have been out of commission for a while for a very simple reason. I've been fighting double pneumonia. Now, some people do understand. I never went to the doctor. There was no point to it from my standpoint. Some people have suggested I may have had COVID. I have no idea. I didn't go to the doctor. It seemed to me if I went to the doctor, I was going to get diagnosed with it, whether I had it or not. Besides that, I've had double before. And, thank you so much, everybody, for your well wishes, your support, your encouragement. Muchly appreciated. Hopefully, I am now on the mend. Been sleeping a lot in the last little while, the last couple of weeks. Sleeping an awful lot, drinking a lot of hot liquid. But on top of that, I had a goal for the end of this year. And that goal was to drop below 200 pounds. Well, during this illness, I managed to drop, as of this morning, as a matter of fact, just so I can give you the right answer. Where are we? As of this morning, I was down to 193.4. And still dropping. Bye, Jay. Glad to see you. Yeah, it's been a long haul. A very long haul, in all fairness. But the reality is it's been a long haul, and reality is I'm hoping this is the start of a continued improvement. I made this goal for myself that I was going to break that 200-pound mark. I've done that. Now, I also made a commitment to myself because, as you can see, my muscle definition is pretty pathetic. Well, mind you, I'm 59 years old and I work at a desk. You figure it out. With that in mind, I did determine that I will be. Good afternoon, Sue. Glad you could make it. The other commitment I made to myself was once I broke the 200 and was safely under it, I would start working on my strength, on my overall health again. But yes, I'm going to take it carefully. I'm not going to a gym. I'm going to rely on what I know, which isn't a whole lot. But I've been talking to people, that actually learn, that actually train in the fitness industry to make sure I'm on the right track. To this end, I intend on building my muscle back up, because I will tell you, right now, when a year and a bit ago, I was 246, and I went, I am not hitting 250. Well, at 193, this means I've lost in the last year 50 pounds. Now, quite just over. Now, quite seriously, there are a lot of medications out there that people will tell you, if you look at the new doctors, here's the one I like. Dropping weight does not require exercise or dieting. It doesn't work. You just need this pill. I never took any pills. Well, that's not 100% true. I am taking something right now to help stabilize my teeth. But I took one of and I forget what the name of it was, but it's a caution for all of you. I tried this medication about a year ago, maybe only 6 months, right? That said, take this pill, it'll help you drop the weight. And I was dead set. I really desired to drop the weight. Well, took the pills for 3-4 days, had a heart attack. Good idea. Now, granted, you have a pretty serious heart attack, the odds are you're going to lose weight. Odds are you're going to end up dead. So I tried that method, but there's something else that I came to understand. I was told if you desire to lose weight, exercise doesn't work. Cutting back on the amount of food you eat doesn't work. Well, here's a commonality for you people. If, regardless of your age, regardless of your nationality, okay, regardless of any of it, if you put less calories into your body than what you're burning, you're going to drop weight. Good afternoon, Chad. Not very. I only just got here, 5 minutes ago. So, no, you're pretty much on time. I'm late. I was planning on being on here at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Well, that didn't work out quite well. But I'm here now. But I turned around and I went, I'm going to drop this weight. Tried the pill, didn't work worth a hoot. But no matter what your finances, no matter who you're crawling into bed with, no matter who you worship, if you put in, and now I am not a medical doctor, so don't just take my word for it. Okay, seriously, do your own research, but use some common sense. If you're putting less calories into your body than you're burning, you will drop weight. Okay. Now, like I said, I am not a medical doctor. And I do encourage you, if you are having trouble medically speaking, talk to the people that have been trained. The hope is that they figured something out. Okay. But the other thing you have to remember about these neat little things called diet pills, okay, is this. If you're dropping, they talk about, take this pill, you can drop 40 pounds in a month. Maybe you can. I had a heart attack. It worked. Okay. But you have to remember, if you're dropping weight, all of that waste product, all of that junk in your system has to go through your bowels, through your kidneys, through your liver. It's all got to go somewhere. Now, if you're dropping 40 pounds in a month, you're pumping a lot of stuff through those systems and you're overstraining them. Now, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Okay. But again, especially where it comes to food, there's no saying that goes everything in moderation. Okay. And the reality of it is this. There is, from what I've seen, like I'm looking, I just saw the other day and I didn't read up on it, but people have gone back to the Middle Ages. Apparently, there's something wrong with tomatoes now. They found some sort of a enzyme or something that makes tomatoes bad for you. Back in the Middle Ages, tomatoes were considered a poison until somebody stood there and ate a bucket of them right in front of the crowd. And I don't remember who the person was. Okay. Sat down, ate a bushel of them, and survived. Well, now we're going backwards, going, tomatoes there's an enzyme that's bad for you and causes cancer. Can we try and think a little? Okay. There is so much fear being propagated out there. It's absolutely insane, in my opinion. Okay. Now, these are things that everybody, and here's the other side of what I do here. Okay. This thing is here. It's called an ephemeris. Okay, used for astrology. Now, if you'll notice, and I don't expect you to read this, those are all the locations of planetary bodies. Okay, that's 4 months on just this one page. Now, when I learned how to do astrology, and how to understand it, never once did any of the teachers I talked to specify, you got to find out what skin color the person is. You got to make sure you know who they're crawling into bed with in order for that to work. They don't separate them. It's when were you born, where were you born, okay, and sometimes what time were you born, which is part of when. The reality is they all use the same book. Okay, Western astrology uses this. Now, there is another form of astrology called Vedic astrology, which I know just about nothing about, except for the fact I know how to spell it. Okay. Now, ultimately, that is one of the biggest issues there. You know why, Jay? The reality of it is that when we take a look at the issues, okay, when we take a look at the whole breathing process, and this is what I love about people, minor sidetrack, okay, people that are against smoking. Oh, secondhand smoke is the worst type of smoke. Get a brain. Okay, the human lung is one of the best filtration systems designed. Okay, and for that secondhand smoke to be secondhand, it's got to go through that filtration system and then out into the air about you. This cannot be worse than direct smoke. Okay, and again, all I'm suggesting is that take a look at what you're being told and ask yourself, does this make sense? Okay, meet anybody, take a look at their skin color. Okay, before you even ask them a thing, look at their skin color. And what's the first thing you'll notice, aside from their skin color? Virtually everybody has 2 arms. We have 2 legs, 2 eyes, a nose, pair of ears. As you can tell, you can't always see the ears. Okay, but these are the things that are right there in front of you. Get over the idea that the skin color matters. Okay, if skin color mattered that much, don't you think people's personality would change when they got a tan? Okay, it is time we absolutely look at the positive side, at the similarities between people. Guaranteed. Okay, most people that have a lot of money also have only 2 arms, only 2 legs. Okay, there was a saying I grew up with that went, we were born with 2 ears and a mouth and only 1 mouth for a reason. Okay, 2 ears, 2 eyes, and only 1 mouth. Okay, you're also born with 2 nostrils, by the way. The reason being there's a lot of information coming in and only 1 venue for it to go out. Well, technically there's 2. You could be using sign language. But regardless of the language you're using, there is a staggering amount of information coming in. Now, I've been doing my best to stay out of the mainstream mess. And apparently that's not working that well. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had an awful lot of time to really think things through. And I figured, I looked at it and went, I could stay working on the road that I'm on and just stay quiet and go, no, not going to deal with it. Okay, I could just sit here and go, no, you guys can carry on trying to figure things out. But that's not working. Okay, I'm 59. I've been sitting watching the human race. I pulled away from people early on in my childhood. Okay, because I couldn't handle the fact that people couldn't see the obvious, at least the obvious to me. Okay, almost every religion that you run across. Now, there will be some churches that do things a little differently. Okay, so, and there are certainly different religious people that have a different outlook than the mainstream. So, I'm going to say this. This is my opinion. If what I'm saying you do not agree with, that's fine. I'm not here to convince you. Okay, the only thing I will stand by wholeheartedly, unlike what I was told by somebody, it cost me a friendship in the process. Okay, my opinion cannot be wrong. My information may be, my assessment may be incorrect or incomplete, but my opinion, same as yours, cannot be wrong. Okay, you are absolutely entitled to your own opinion, but ask yourself this. Can you point out, and I've asked people to point this out, and I'll drop it back in your guys' lap again. Okay, one of the biggest objections I've got with the whole way that religion has shattered the unity of the human race is by turning around and going, Okay, if you don't believe in exactly what I say, you're wrong. Okay, that's absolutely, let's fear everything. And I keep asking people, and I've yet to get anybody that gave me a rational answer. Now, we have logic and we have emotion. Okay. Now, the reality of this is as follows. When I talk to religious people on the whole, I'll ask them, do you believe that God made everything? And virtually without exception, they'll go, absolutely. Then I'll turn around and ask them the other question. This is where I run into a problem. And if you have an answer for me, absolutely drop me a line in the comments. Drop me a line on any one of the contact points you'll find below this in this video and every other video I've done. Okay. But the question is I ask them that throws a wrench in things is, did God create evil? And virtually without exception, I get this blanket, no, God didn't create evil. He created everything except he did not create evil. And I keep telling people, I keep asking, how can that be a possibility? If God created everything, which, by the way, I'm a firm believer he did. Okay, it's a little oversimplified, but it does really hold, at least in my opinion. If God created everything, then he had to create evil. And like I told somebody just the other day, a very firmly entrenched individual in a given religion, like I told them, when you can explain to me how God could create everything and not create evil, when you can explain that, just maybe I'll come into your church. Until then, don't bother, because I'm not going. Okay. Now, my little brother actually told me flat out. He goes, if you think you're always right, you will never learn anything. And I looked at him and I went, possible. But thus far, I have yet to find a way to rectify that little problem. Because in my opinion, it's a real simple issue. Okay. You have the power of creation in your hand, in your heart. You yourself have the capacity to make phenomenal works of art. Okay, to make phenomenal strides forward. The human race has the knowledge. Every one of you has the same knowledge. You have the capacity to work with what humans call 0-point energy. Okay, now I've dealt with a lot of different races. Okay, I've dealt with a lot of different species. And here's the thing, aside from communication complications, people, animals, plants, they all respond the same way. Okay, they all really do. So, granted, you may not be able to absolutely communicate in English with your dog, but your dog has a personality. Your dog does see things in a certain way. And you can learn to interact with them. Same as cats, although I will tell you, cats seem to be a little more stubborn. So I'm looking at this going, how am I going to rectify this? Well, we've got to start looking at not the differences. Okay, everybody has differences. Okay, some people, I'm looking just this shirt here. I'm not happy with my arms. In case you hadn't noticed, not in good shape. Okay. At 59 years old, due to the fact I work on a desk, okay, I sit on my tail feathers and write. Okay, when you look at that, it's no wonder my muscle tone is pretty much garbage. On the other hand, with that lack of exercise, just by cutting down on the amount of food that I take in, okay, I've ended up dropping, like I said, just over 50 pounds at this point. Now, I don't need that. Where the heck is it? There we are. So I mean, from my standpoint, it's pretty cut and dried. Okay, I decided I was going to drop the weight. And that's just the way it was going to go. And that's just it, YJ. We have to find a balance. Okay, if you strive now, here's where we run into a problem. This takes us a little sidetrack. Okay, mankind is working on computers with AI. This is a brilliant idea, wonderful thought. But think of the logic behind it. Turn over this whole mess that we've got going on, and guess what logic dictates is the cure to the conflict going on right now. Okay, and it's been covered in so many movies. Okay, with a similar thread. What happens if we take a look at the logic side? Well, if mankind is trying to kill itself, then the logical solution is wipe mankind out. Okay, now do not get me wrong. War to me has never brought peace. Now understand, I remember the mess at the bottom of Mount Sinai. I remember the burning of Sodom and Gomorrah. Yes, I remember my past lives, many of them. Okay, I remember the Crusades. Okay, again, great exercise in stupidity. Okay, I remember the Black Death. And all of these things have one thing in common, even the witch hunts. We don't like this, therefore we're going to fear it, therefore we're going to try and kill it. Now, the Black Death was really a cute period. For me, it was extremely profitable. I mean, granted, I lost my wife and I lost my 2 boys, as well as many of my friends. As it turned out, not only was I a coroner, but I was immune to the Black Death. Now, the reality of it was when the Black Death started, in the town I was living in, we had 4 coroners. Okay, so it was really struggling to make ends meet. You know, just to try and get ahead. Okay. So when the Black Death came, well, first and foremost, we had no shortage of bodies. So profit lines were at a staggering level. You know, in my case, and in a good friend of mine's case, okay, we turned around and we worked a lot of the time on an issue of charitable donation. In other words, yeah, we'll get this body out of here, we'll bury it, and we'll just take a loaf of bread and call it a day instead of being paid money. The reason for it was money was not something that was available to most people. You know, when your primary breadwinner just up and dies, all of a sudden you're not making a lot of money. Okay, but the Black Death didn't check who is in what political position, or who had how many buildings, or who owned the bank. It just wiped out everybody. Now, I am a firm believer that one of the reasons that I stayed healthy was because being a coroner, okay, I was constantly cleaning up. I was constantly washing things and getting the poison out of the way. At that time, this was not normal. Okay, people just didn't do that. They didn't put 2 and 2 together. Okay, so, you know, the funny part about it there, I'm just looking at this comment that YJ made. Okay, YJ, you said you don't believe in good or evil. Okay, well, there we go. You said you don't believe in good or evil, only just in balance. But in order to have balance, you have to have good and evil, neither one of which is more important than the other. The balance is absolutely the critical factor. Okay, and this is what we have to look at. It takes people from every walk of life to make things happen. Okay, it takes people, it's going to take the cooperation of everybody in existence, or virtually everybody in existence, to put things on track properly once again. Okay, now I absolutely implore you, if you find a church you'd like to go to, if you find a temple you'd like to go to, or a support group, whatever, any group that offers you some sort of emotional support during your time of trial and tribulation, absolutely turn to them. Okay, but consider what they're teaching. if they're teaching you to fear everybody that is not identical to you, or if they're suggesting giving more of your money to them than what you can afford, okay, you might want to reconsider the focal point of your attention. Okay, now I could go around and point out all the problems I see in everything, and I've considered that on occasion. Okay, whoop, let me just read there. Here's the thing, YJ. That is a way to do it, and for some people that works. Okay, this comment you've got here: sugar, artificial sweeteners, canola oil, gluten, bread. Eliminate those 4 things, you will be your optimum self. Well, I heard the same thing said about removing protein from your red meat protein from your diet. Now, and this is why everyone is an individual. Now, absolutely, if you're putting too much sugar into your system, you're going to have problems. Okay, I find that if I turn around like Christmas cake, which is out nowadays, you can buy it in the store, and it's got a ½ inch of icing on it. I cannot eat that, okay, because that amount of sugar causes a problem. That works. I mean, the reality of it there, and YJ, is William Shakespeare said it best, in my opinion, when he said, "A rose by any other name will smell as sweet." Okay, whether we call it good and evil, favorable or unfavorable, beneficial or harmful, benevolent or malevolent, it doesn't matter. Okay, it's a name to describe something that isn't quite of a balanced point. And there is an old saying that does hold very true. It's held true for centuries. Everything in moderation, whether we are talking about diet, whether we are talking about religion, whether we are talking about money, it doesn't matter. It's all the same idea. It's all a question of everything in moderation. For me, I listen to some of what I say and I'm going like, these people cannot actually be listening. Because a lot of the time I'm looking at what I'm saying going, I've got a very, shall we say, depressed outlook on the way the world is right now. And one of the biggest problems I run into, of course, is the reality that I have a tendency of taking things way too literally. Hey, Spooky, glad you made it. Yeah, I'm finally starting to get back on my feet. At least I think I am. I'm still overheating, which is why, where is that? Just checking the temperature here. Right now, our temperature outside is at -2, which realistically boils down to just below 32 degrees. Okay, for those of you in the States. So it's just below freezing. I've got my window open because I'm overheating. And this is what I mean by everybody has their own balance points. Okay. Joe, how you doing? We have to look at the reality that, I heard one person, well, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, if it's natural, it's good for you. Here's some bad news. Arsenic is a natural toxin. So is hemlock. So are rhubarb leaves. Okay, these are all natural plants that are absolutely natural, but I'll guarantee they're also poisonous, which, by the way, to me means they're not really good. Okay, so just because it's natural does not mean it's good. And just because it is man-created does not mean it is bad. What, in my opinion, is bad is people turning around and going, let's drill the idea of fear into everybody. Let's make certain that you're absolutely afraid of your neighbor. Okay, make absolutely certain that no matter what the weather's doing outside, you're afraid of it. Okay. To me, this is a problem. I'm not really surprised there, Joe. Joe's just made a comment here. The pizza places are really busy tonight. Personally, I don't like cooking. Think that has to do with the fact I've got no sense of taste to speak of. I've got no sense of timing and no functional sense of space, which begs the question how I drive without an accident. But for these reasons, I don't do a lot of cooking myself. Okay. But I will tell you this. When we are living in fear, we have a major problem. Oh, I'm just thinking, I mentioned earlier when I first got on here that I was going to be dealing with my strength levels. Okay. Now, like I said, I desire, I personally am aiming at increasing my upper torso level. When I was a lot younger, okay, I used to curl 100 pounds without even blinking. Now, that's not a lot of weight. But considering the fact that this is only about 5 pounds. This is the weight I'm starting with. Okay. And I'll be working with this slowly to build my back, to build my arms, and hopefully my legs at the same time. But I'm going to do it one step at a time. Okay. And again, I've spoken to people in the industry. I don't have a personal trainer per se. But what many of the people that are actually living in this industry have told me, now there may be other opinions out there. Get your own information. But what I've been told is you work with it on slow repetitions. Yeah, I'm with you there, Joe. This is one of the reasons I'm reclusive. Okay. I was told if I work with the free weights and I do slow repetitions, I will gain better strength development than if I do lots of repetitions. Okay. And no, I'm not going into showing people about weight training. I am not a professional weight trainer by any functional method. This is simply the method I will personally be using. And again, the weights, if you're working with weights, the weights don't care how much money you've got. They don't care who you've crawled into bed with. They don't care who you worship. Weight is simply weight. Money is the same way. It does not care one iota how nice of a person you are or how bad of a person you are. It will still treat you the exact same way. Okay. And it really is long overdue time for us to turn around. I appreciate that, Spooky, and I may well look into that. I find that I spend way too much time writing my own stuff and what have you, but it is something I have to look at. Okay, and this is why I say, when you just understand whatever you find on the net, that works for that person. It may work for lots of people. Okay, I'm not here. For a while, I looked at my YouTube channel going, I don't have a whole lot of people, that are following it. And this is very much the case. But the reality behind it is it also doesn't really matter. Okay. What does matter is, from my standpoint, doing this kind of thing. Thank you so much, guys, for your encouragement and what have you. Especially the group that started encouraged me to come online from Spaced Out Radio. Okay. Because it's been that encouragement that really pushed the envelope and got me thinking of just exactly how much good it was going to do. Not for you, but for me. As it turns out, it works out really well. Okay. what I'm looking at here is I just want to see what kind of level I'm actually sitting at. And I mean, to me, this is amazing. Like, I'm sitting at 317 people right now. That's been fluctuating a little, and it will continue to do so. But it's very much like the turtle and the hare. Same as with my finances, with my health, and with your finances, with your health. Now, about a year ago, I was 246 pounds. Okay. Over the course of the last year-ish, okay, I've dropped over 50 pounds. And the one fundamental difference that I had in that process compared to what most people I was talking to had was I didn't look to lose the weight. Because in my opinion, when you go and lose something, 90% of the time you go out looking for something else. What did we just see here? Because there's something that I just noticed. Oh, Joe, the answer is not so secret. Okay. Back in the 1970s, I told people then up here in Canada that if you walked into a government office, they could tell you not only how much money you had in your possession right then, but they could tell you how much money you had of each denomination. Now, I was told I was nuts. And remember, this is before iPhones and computers ever came into functional use. Okay. Even then, they were doing it. Good morning, Narda. Glad you made it. So are they secretly tracking? Not really. They come right out and tell you. We're tracking your phones. We're tracking your internet involvement. We're tracking your finances. Okay. They are not doing it secretly. They've come right out and told you they're tracking it. And they are. Okay. And if they tell you they're not, just giggle and carry on. Okay. Like I said, back in the 70s, they were doing it. They're still doing it today. Okay. They're tracking the mileage on your cars. Now, here's the important thing. This sounds like I'm going, oh, let's all get paranoid because the government's watching us. Newsflash, most of you are not that important. And I know that sounds terrible. Everybody wants to be important. Everybody wants to be looked up to. Okay. The only time I find I look up to people is if they're standing above me or if they're taller than I am. But I've never separated somebody's position in life to indicate they were a better individual. They may have more talent in certain areas. Okay. But governments, and I don't mean just the government. Okay. Take a look at it. Okay. You as an individual, do you not notice when somebody is talking about something near you? Do you not pay attention to the comments that are being made? Do you not pay attention to what people are wearing? This is a form of tracking. Okay. Now, it takes it onto a whole new level. Okay. And don't kid yourself. When people say, oh, the government doesn't know where you are, got news for you. Take a whole lot of the whole concept of the government wanting to chip everybody. They already did that. Well, I don't need that. Hang on. I don't need that. There. Okay, they already chipped you. You may not have a chip in your body. Okay. You're packing one of these things. Or you're near somebody that's packing one of these things. And you notice this fine little issue here. That fine little camera. You take a picture. You can bet your bottom dollar it's being dissected to see what's going on. But like I said, the reality is, if you're not doing anything blatantly complicated, okay, or deliberately hurting somebody else, then this kind of surveillance doesn't matter. Okay. I ended up with a text from my The quantum system was never designed. I don't argue the fact that it was the so-called elite controllers. By the way, they're no better than anybody else. But Narda is just pointing out, she goes, at least I'm presuming with a name like Narda that it's a she. And if not Narda, my apologies. But Narda has stated, thank God the quantum system that the elite controllers thought they were going to use to enact final control system has been disabled. Okay. It was never designed properly, and a system that is technologically based will not supplant human mind. Okay. The human mind is way, way, way too far developed. Okay. I'm living proof. Now, the reality is I'm not the only one that does this, but I will short computers out by walking by them. Okay. And yeah, I'm just looking back up here, Spooky, and that was pretty much when, because this is going back to the workouts and what have you, that resistance is what builds strength, which boils down to if you do it slowly, when you're exercising, do it slowly, you'll build the resistance sooner than wearing yourself out first and then having to build the resistance. Now, personally, I'm lazy, which may be exemplified by the fact I work sitting on my tail feathers. But we have to realize that, and this is why when people talk about the idea of, let's overthrow a government, there's a brilliant idea, people. Read Animal Farm. That might give you an idea of what you're looking at. Overthrowing a government has never worked well. Okay, all it's done is change the controller. That's all. Okay, creates anarchy, but anarchy is only a stopgap between order. It's just a transition. To give you an idea of how that works, and this is an experiment you can do yourself. It doesn't require people, doesn't require animals. It requires you and a bucket of water and a spoon. Okay. Well, in all fairness, you don't need a spoon. Take a bucket of water. Okay. I don't have one handy, but this will work. Take a bucket of water. Okay. Fill it. And then put your finger in it and start spinning it around in circles. Okay, and watch what happens. You'll get a little bit of a funnel in the water. Just keep going around in circles, get going up to a nice speed. And then without stopping to speak of, start going the other direction. When it's going in the one direction, okay, this is order. This is a convenient way. Everything's running smoothly. All water molecules are going pretty much in the same direction. All people are essentially going in the same way. Now you start spinning it, right? Like this, and it will start, and it'll create that little bit of a funnel. Now here's the kicker. When you're doing it in the one way, now just all of a sudden stop and go the other direction and watch how much chaos, how much anarchy all of a sudden happens in amongst the water molecules. Okay, you'll have absolute chaos until it goes back far enough, and then it smooths out again. This is the ultimate description, a very simplistic one, of what happens when you take governmental order or societal order going in one direction, go the other direction. You get anarchy for a bit, and then it will smooth out. But here's the kicker. When you're making laws, when you're laying out the organization, okay, if the laws do not apply to everybody, society will fracture. Okay, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Okay, now, if that new society does not have properly set up laws that apply to everybody, it too will fracture. Here's a prime example. I know I'm going to get flack for this from somebody. Okay, people complained that they wanted to be able to sleep. Guys wanted to sleep with guys, girls wanted to sleep with girls. Okay, and of course, the religious community went, no, that's absolutely evil. Well, we'll start with the obvious issue. And again, do your own research. No, in all fairness, Joe, arsenic isn't the most dangerous of poisons, but it certainly ranks up there. There are other ones that are higher. I'm just not a toxicologist, so I just can't give you the answer. Well, maybe I can. Now let's just try something here. Of course, my computer doesn't want to cooperate overly well. Let's see what they come up with. Just typing into the computer. What is the most deadly toxin? Call it the most deadly natural toxin. Now, that's all I've typed in. Okay. Is what is the most deadly natural toxin? And it breaks it down a little. Okay, let's see what it does here. Botulinum toxin. Okay. Apparently, it's a toxin from a frog. Okay. At most, 1 nanogram per kilogram can kill a human. Now, that means 1,000th of a gram per, I think it's a 1,000th of a gram, per 2.12 pounds of a human. Okay. We'll now understand there's 28 grams to an ounce, which gives you an idea of how dangerous that is. And again, this is something, and this is just something you can look up on the net. Okay. But in my opinion, the most deadly toxin in existence is ignorance. Okay. If you blindly follow what other people tell you, and this is why I say don't just take my word for it. Do your own research. Okay. But my personal opinion is the most dangerous toxin in existence is ignorance. Okay. It will bring down empires. It will bring down households. It'll bankrupt people. If you don't know what you're doing, talk to somebody that has done it successfully. Now, I have successfully dropped over 50 pounds with no diet pills, with no extreme exercise. Okay. Now, I'd already dropped almost 40 pounds before I got sick. Okay. But, so do I know how to drop the weight safely without added medication and what have you? Have I done it successfully? The answer is yes. Will I be happy to explain that to you? Certainly. But it worked for me, and that's all I can go on. I am not a professional I'm not a professional physical trainer. I just simply know what has worked for me and what has worked for people I've talked to. Okay. Now, do I desire to get into better shape than what I'm in? Certainly. But each and every one of you likely has some aspect of your life you're not content with. Many of you will look at your finances and go, I'm not happy with my monetary setup. Okay. And that may be where a lot of your stress is coming from. But whether you are living on the street or you're a multimillionaire, you've got the same problem because money doesn't care how you feel. Okay. Money really has no concern with how you're feeling. Am I in perfect health? Not even close. But ask yourself, when you're going to a support group, whether it's religious, spiritual support group like NA or AA, Are they encouraging you to work with each other and to reclaim power over your own life? Or are they encouraging you to trade off another addiction? Okay, when I talk about everything in moderation, okay, I used to drink a 26er a night without even blinking. Okay, now my drink of choice was, frankly, if it was liquid and alcoholic, it worked. Personally, I preferred Crown Royal. Okay, now I barely drink at all, but I can drink if I choose to. Okay, I used to go walk into a bar and I'd kill a 26er in one night. Okay, and I wouldn't think anything of it. Okay, I used to sit down and I would eat an entire chicken for dinner. Net result, I ended up at 246 pounds. Not really brilliant. Okay, so I've cut back on my eating, on the amount I eat. I've cut back on the amount I drink, aside from coffee, apparently. But the idea of everything in moderation holds extremely true. Yeah, the old MASH TV show my brother used to watch all the time. I watched enough of it. I never did get caught up in TV itself, even as a kid much. Okay. But MASH was an excellent show. There were a lot of shows from back then that were really good, and I wish there were ones nowadays where people actually had some sort of family values taught. I mean, and I know, I'm sure you'll recognize this given that you're watching MASH there, Joe. But some of the old movies that people used to watch all the time, they weren't people getting shot all over the place. You had shows like Leave It to Beaver. Okay, you had Swiss Family Robinson. You had the Brady Bunch. You had the Partridge Family. Okay, even had a really wonderful one called The Odd Couple. Okay, and again, these all taught, and of course, let's remember My Three Sons, shall we? Okay, these were shows that had some sort of a backbone to them, some sort of a moral message, other than let's see who can kill who as fast, the fastest. Okay. The programming of today's world is teaching, frankly, in my opinion, ignorance and lack of motivation. Okay, it's being taught instant, society's being taught instant gratification is the way to go. Money, the stuff you can buy is what makes things positive. Well, here's the thing. No matter what walk of life that you live in, no matter how you function, okay, you're all doing the same thing. Okay, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. Doesn't matter what gender you are. Now, to be clear, I'm an absolute firm believer that regardless of what gender you are, if you're doing a job, okay, and if you're doing the same job as if a woman is doing the same job that a male is doing, they should be getting paid the same amount. Not, you're physically built a little differently, so no, you shouldn't do that. We're not going to pay you that much. I'll tell you, if you take a look at the female side of things, okay, again, when women's lib came out, they went overboard. Well, the whole issue of skin color came to the surface and all of a sudden became a problem. They went overboard. Okay, and now, I mean, you look at the gay society at this point. I like the gay society way before it took on this definition. The gay society, the happy society. That is the important factor. Okay, not who you're crawling into bed with. But I know people in the gay community, and they fight with each other. It's absolutely stupid. Okay. I mean, I thought it was bad way back in the 70s when the Protestants and the Catholics were fighting over the same God. Kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys. They had a brilliant fight going on. But now we've got the gay community going, oh, you've got kids. You can't possibly be gay. Okay. This is absolutely ludicrous. Okay. Whether you've got kids or not boils down to a metabolic issue. Okay. Not a preference issue. And there is a very big difference between going, I prefer being with a member of my own gender. And it's gotten really, really stupid. Okay, I do feel for people in today's world. Okay. I never actually watched it there, Joe. Joe's just said the worst reality show ever, TV show ever, was Jersey Shore. I've never actually seen Jersey Shore, so I can't comment on it functionally at all. But I mean, years ago when the whole gay movement came out, you had two genders to worry about. Now even modern doctors have come out and said, oh, by the way, the human race, some modern doctors have come out and said, oh, the human race has 5 genders. I'm like, are you people completely insane? Okay, or maybe there's parts missing. I don't know. Okay, but I'm watching society find all sorts of neat ways to differentiate between itself. To say, oh, I'm better than you. I'm different than you. Here's a long-range extrapolation for you. We have just over 8 billion people on the planet. And based on what people identify as, based on what people relate to, etc., sometime in the next 200 years or so, at this rate, we're going to have 8 billion genders of the human race. Okay. See, the reality is, and this little comment here, Joe, I laugh uncontrollably for no reason. Well, obviously there's a reason, but laughter is something that every member of every society I've ever been to does. If they find something funny, even if it's twisted in other people's eyes, they laugh. If they're unhappy, they cry. Okay. If they're hurt badly enough, they bleed. Usually. Now, I know there's one race out there called the vegan. Not vegans, but vegans. They don't bleed. You cut their arm off, they no longer pick something up with that arm, granted. But they don't bleed. They don't feel pain. Okay. So, I mean, when you take a look at it, people are the same way. Even this, okay, I used to get harassed because I wear glasses. Okay. And the reality of it is this. I still wear them because my eyes don't work as well as I'd like. But 15 years ago, if I held my glasses right there, I couldn't physically see them. Period. Okay. Now I've got 20/20 eyesight for reading. Okay. But here's why. Okay. And I don't expect you to believe this. But there's a book out called The Bates Method to Better Eyesight Without Glasses. I do recommend you look it up. Okay. If you're having trouble with your eyesight. Because it teaches you how the eyes work. And it was that book that gave me the key to start healing my own. Now, you couple that with the idea of putting glasses. Here's the thing. Your eyes will naturally change shape as they adjust to see at different depths. Okay. So this is how they work because you work the muscle. It's like my arms. My arms are very weak right now. Okay. And no, I'm not going to go into a demonstration of how weak they are, nor am I going to go, well, how weak are they? Well, I'll tell you what, they're weak enough. But when you take your glasses and you adjust and you build the glasses so they adjust for the light coming in, light naturally change, your eyes naturally adjust to it. Okay. The second you put a pair of glasses on, okay, it locks the direction that the light comes in. so that when you're wearing them, the eyes no longer have to adjust. Therefore, they atrophy. They get weaker. Okay, do not take my word for it. Okay, this is my belief structure. It's this belief structure that has guided me to actually improving my eyesight where I can run most of my day, as long as I'm not trying to work on the computer or drive. Both of those cases, I use my glasses. Okay, but it was that book that taught me the basics, plus a course in optics, that the second you put a glass lens in front of you, okay, it locks the eyeball to take in the light from that angle. Okay, now yes, this will make it easier, but the moment you take your glasses off, the eyes, the muscle has fragmented on it. It's atrophied. Net result, your eyesight's going to decrease. Now, do not get me wrong. If you're wearing glasses, for pity's sakes, continue wearing them where required. If you cannot see well enough to drive safely without your glasses, don't. Okay. I mean, never mind the law says you have to wear glasses if your eyes don't work. This should be common sense. If I'm driving along and I can't see where I'm going, I have a weird habit. I take my foot off the accelerator. And sometimes I'll apply the brake gently. Okay. Because I can't see where I'm going. I'm not interested in running into something. But it doesn't matter how much money you've got. It doesn't matter who you're worshiping. Okay? Doesn't matter what color your skin are. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. If your eyes aren't working right, glasses still affect everybody the same way. Okay. And again, this boils down to an issue of taking a look at what works for you. Okay. And really asking yourself, what is the difference between me? You can ask, what's the difference between you and the next person to you? Or ask yourself this, what is the similarity? Okay. What is it that is making you similar to the person next to you? Now, this whole idea, there's a couple of things, and yes, I've hit a few places, and over the next little while, I'm going to go more into them, and I'm certain I'm going to upset some people. Okay. When I take a look at indigenous populations, okay, indigenous to me, look it up on the internet. As a matter of fact, let's just do that, shall we? Go to this little thing here, and we're just going to look up the definition of indigenous. There we go. Indigenous, meaning. Now, this is pulled straight off the internet. Originating or occurring naturally in a particular place, native. Okay. Now, this means if it is originating naturally in a particular place. Now, understand, I have no idea. Well, actually, I do. But this doesn't specify species. It does not specify anything except originating or occurring naturally in a particular place. Therefore, if you were born in Canada, I don't care what your ancestors were, I'm talking about you. Or if you were born in the United States, England, Australia, Siberia, it doesn't matter. You're indigenous to that. You are a member of the indigenous population of that location. Now, you can spin any type of word you want on it. Okay, you absolutely can. But it's time we start looking at the similarities here. Yes, you can make things sound so much better. You're only of value. I know people that literally, if you don't have $100,000 in the bank, you're a lesser person, because they look at it and go, money makes the person the reality. Money is what matters. And if you don't have this arbitrary number, you're not worth as much as I am. Okay, which, granted, financially is accurate. But tell me, the guy next door to you, okay, if he doesn't have as much money, dollar value, in his possession as you do, is he a lesser individual than you? Okay, and let's realize the number of people that buy a house, okay, and are paying a mortgage on it. They're paying rent to the bank, period. If you're renting a house, like I'm renting an apartment, okay, I'm renting an apartment, that's it. Okay, but I never invite somebody over to my landlord's pocket room. I invite them over to my place. If you're paying a mortgage or you're leasing a vehicle, you don't own it. You're renting it. Okay, it still belongs to the other person. The fact you've got the right to pay for the expenses, I mean, to me, this is pretty black and white. I rent an apartment. If I have a problem with my door, okay, if I have a problem with the lock, I call the landlord up and go, I got a problem with the lock. Please fix it. He foots the bill. If you own your own home, if you're renting it from the bank, you've got a mortgage. You've got a problem with your lock. You're footing the bill for the lock. Period. So by getting a mortgage, what you've done is you've taken the responsibility and said, I'm going to agree to pay for all repairs that this other person owns this building for. Okay. Same thing with a vehicle. If my vehicle, right now I'm making payments on it. I don't own the thing. It's still in my name. But the reality of it is, if I have a problem with it, they've got a certain set of things that are covered. Okay. But if I want gas in it, I don't go to the car lot and go, I need gas, put gas in it. Okay. I go to the gas station just like you, and I pay gas to put in my car so I can do what I please within reason. Okay. These are all things that are these are all similarities between people. Okay. And it's all extremely necessary at this point. Okay. And, are these things I'm going to have to deal with? Well, technically I don't have to. But am I going to turn around and start looking at things and going, okay, where are the hiccups? And thus point them out? Yes. Do I expect you people to agree with everything I say? Not a prayer. But I will tell you this. Every single species I've ever dealt with, okay, have similar situations. Hey, good afternoon, Ange. Glad you can make it. The reality of it is, people, regardless of your species, regardless of where you grew up, okay, regardless of what you're going through, there are so many similarities between us. It's time we start focusing on them. It's time we start acting as a unified species. Okay. Now, there is an old saying that goes, fake it till you make it. Okay. Ultimately, this is the reality behind it. Because unless we start focusing on the similarities between us, we're going to keep finding new and exciting ways to destroy the world we're living on. Okay. To cause conflict. Now, you can call whatever, you can call anything you're watching on the news, anything you'd like. I don't care. Well, I do, but not as much as you might think. The funny thing is, I've been on this for just over an hour now. Right. And at least I'm not hacking up a lung right now. which is such an improvement from my last little while. But if we continue finding justification for being stupid to each other, society will tear itself apart. So my chat, tell you, it was rough there for a little while. I tried coming on a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, but as you were witness to, didn't work that well. We can continue looking at the negative side, and we can keep looking at, well, who's right, who's wrong. Well, here's the news. In war, nobody wins. Absolutely, Chad. Fire away. I've taken a look at things, and in war, I've watched war for centuries. Literally, because I remember my past lives. Okay. I remember wars, and I was talking to a friend of mine. He recently, just earlier this year, he actually was on the beach. He landed on the beach of Normandy during D-Day. Okay. Well, I will absolutely give you this. That is off topic. I'm just trying to think. I know I've used one. I don't think I ever actually owned one, to be honest with you. Chad's just asked, have you ever had an RC car or truck? I don't think I've ever actually owned one. I know I've used them before, but I never did get into them. I used to make the Mattel. Yeah, I used to make the Mattel models. Okay, but I don't think I've ever actually owned. Actually, I'll show you something here. Since you brought that up, this isn't an RC, and it's only going to take me a minute to get it, but I'll show you something. Be right back. Now, you asked about an RC car. When I was growing up, this is one that my grandfather actually made for me years ago. Okay, not RC. I mean, our idea of RC at that time was grab it and shove it along. Okay. But for me, that was a toy. RC, you pushed it along. When I was growing up, you pushed it along and you made noise. Then they came out with this one. Now, some of you may recognize this. Okay, as you can see, old name brand, don't know. Okay, these are toys that I've still got from when I was a child. But an RC, a remote control, to the best of my recollection, I never actually owned one. I know my brother did. My brother used to have a RC helicopter. Yep. Yeah, that was back in the heyday. And the thing is, this is not plastic. This is die-cast metal. My dad actually used to sell the full-size versions of these. My dad used to sell something called an amphicat. All-terrain, it was an all-terrain vehicle, as in land, ice, snow, water. The only thing it didn't do, unless you got real good speed, was it didn't do air. Some of the old toys and what have you. Okay, there's a lot of things I've learned how to do, but electronics and I never got along all that well. My brother used to have a helicopter he used. But these remote controls and what have you, the race cars, my dad used to build real race cars. Yes, it was. Yeah, it was red. And it was red, and the Arctic Cat was purple, and that was the two vehicles that my dad used to sell. Right. The Arctic Cat, of course, was snowmobiles. But myself, I never took to any of the mechanical stuff. Okay. A lot of I'm still trying to get a hold of some of the stuff. From because my parents' estate, I'm still waiting for a couple of things to come back to me from that. And of course, my brother's estate is clearing soon. Yeah, I remember Dad took us out on the Amphicat one day. I used to drive the Amphicat, and it would go up a 45-degree angle without a problem. Dad tried taking it up a 60-degree angle. That proved to be a bad idea because it rolled over. Yeah, I used to have, and I've still got, if I'm waiting to get a hold of them. Before G.I. Joe came out, okay, we had cowboys and Indians. Okay, but they were non-posable. Matter of fact, what I've got, and you can't see it here, and I'm not going to go drag it down, but I'm a Tolkien fan, and I've got, I think, 22 of the full-size figures still in their boxes, hanging on my wall in my bedroom. Okay. Now here's a totally useless piece of information for you, since we're talking old toys. Okay. I used to play with my little sister when I was around about, let's see, I'd have been 14, 15 years old. And I would still play with the Barbies with my little sister. She was down 9, 10 years old. Okay. But we didn't go around trying to kill anybody. Okay. G.I. Joe, and again, I've always been a very firm supporter of the military, of the people that join the military to protect their country, to protect their families. I absolutely agree with that. Government won't touch me for the military. Something about automatic weapons and epilepsy. My son, my youngest son now, has a number of the WWE and WWF wrestlers. I don't think he plays with them much anymore, but they're still in the box. Okay. But some of these old toys, they weren't all these flashing lights and what have you. I used to have one called, what was it called? Oh, and some of you may recognize this one. It was a toy called Billy Blastoff. Okay, it was an automated system, right? Where you'd put the man into the machine, you'd turn the thing on, it would drive across the room. Like these are things from way back when kids were playing with each other and not screaming at each other because of pixel froze. We've still got LinkedIn logs here. My son actually uses them to work on therapy for his hand. And of course, my little brother used to use them. He built phenomenal things. He also built with Lego. But the Lincoln Logs, again, were a real simple setup. Okay. And it encouraged kids to use their imagination. This is one of the reasons why the modern game, Minecraft, has a certain amount of appeal to people, because it uses real simple things to let your imagination grow. And this is one of those things that mankind has really lost. Okay. But yeah, the Lincoln Logs were a phenomenal thing. I used to have something called, what the heck was it called? Screwball, the predecessor to Mr. Potato Head. But Screwball, everything's screwed in. Okay, I don't have him anymore. He went the way of the dodo bird years ago. But But yes, I even have, and yes, I realize I'm 59 years old. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't have toys, you shouldn't have things from your childhood. Okay, I've still got stuffies. That is an excellent question. I know I used to have, I think probably one of my favorite ones would have been Billy Blastoff. I don't have him anymore. Okay, but this one I just showed you where to put it. This one and a couple others like it, I used to play a lot with. Okay, and maybe if I get the ones back from my brother, from my mom's estate, maybe I'll be able to show you the other set that went with this. But I think the one I played the most with would have been Billy Blastoff. Okay, and again, I still look at those days as that's when we used to play. You used to work together, and your imagination is what drove your play. My parents had a brilliant idea. If you were bored inside, they'd chase you outside. Raining, snow, it didn't matter. You got dressed accordingly and you went outside. Okay. I know, one of the things that we used to do, we used to take a baseball bat and, of all things, a golf ball and drive it as far out in the field as we could get it. That's actually not, that's not surprising. But thanks for looking that up, Chad. I appreciate that. Somebody somewhere has got to have G.I. Joes. Okay. But let's face it, certain things fade. God knows one day I'll end up dying again. But no, many of these old games, many of the, is it right here? Yeah. This is the other thing I got into a lot of. I wonder if I can get it out without causing a problem for myself. I used to collect comics a lot too. Okay, now these ones are black and white. And I've got to get back into working with them because they work really well for freehand enlargement. But I used to read comics all the time. Okay. And one day I may get some of my old ones back. My little brother's got cases of them right now. It's not a bad thing looking to the past of things you used to do that you used to enjoy. What I don't enjoy now is the number of people screaming at each other over what I consider absolutely ludicrous things. The fact of the matter is, when we take a look at it, and when you start looking at the children, child comes up to you with a complication. Okay, maybe they've just misplaced their favorite sock. To them, that is an absolutely devastating. It's an absolutely devastating transgression. Okay, but you've got to look at the child and go, okay, to them, it's extremely important. It should be treated with the same respect that you expect other people to treat your missing stuff with. Okay, it may seem trivial to you. It absolutely might. It absolutely might. Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, when we take a look at it in their world, that is the most devastating thing. From my end, I look at the number of people that are out there, and the only reason, in all fairness, that I went and actually voted in this year's election was because I didn't know who I wanted in office, to be honest. I knew who I didn't want in office. So I voted against him. So, From my standpoint, that may well be a backwards way of doing things from your end. From my end, it was a real simple issue. I didn't like the guy that was in office. I knew what he was going to end up doing because he'd already been doing it for 4 years. So I figured, no, that's enough. You can carry on with your own life. Okay. Now I'm looking at it going, okay, where do I go from here? And like I said, I can look at all the things that are wrong in the world, but I think it's best we look at the things that are right. Now, when we take a look at religion, okay, religion across the board, the primary drive, at least what they tell you, is they're aiming at unity. Now, how they equate unity with fear, I'm still trying to figure out. Okay, but they've got to have some sort of an idea working properly. Because I look at it and I'm going, okay, they've got people paying attention. It's like the people that play video games. Okay, and why people sit and watch people play video games, I don't know. My idea, because for me, that just doesn't do it for me. However, I will sit and watch a movie multiple times, which I guess in a way is the same sort of thing. Okay, my idea is to try and get people to think, while I'm reminding myself how to think, about what we can do to make this world a better place for virtually everybody. Now, there will undoubtedly be people that are not happy. Okay, there absolutely will be. People that desire to control everybody around you aren't going to be happy with people that are starting to say, hey, you deserve better treatment. Okay, it just doesn't work well. If you're being told that because you're not that exact person, you're not as valuable as they are. Well, I will tell you, I couldn't change a tire properly without a whole lot of hassle. Okay, so I go to a mechanic. I figure if I find the oil cap, I did really well. This is why when I pulled into a gas station, I just loved it. Up here, they opened a couple of gas stations where they've gone back to the old rule and the attendants come out and pump your gas for you. Now, that may seem like a real simple thing. For me, I just go, you fill it and I'll pay for it and I'm happy. Somebody else is employed. Somebody else is making a living. And it's doing me a favor. Okay. But this is what I mean by it takes all kinds of people. Okay. Now, am I going to tell somebody that their belief is wrong? No. I may tell them it's misguided. As a matter of fact, I absolutely have been known to tell people their perception has been misguided. Okay. The most obvious one is when a religious person turns around and tells me, God created everything except evil. Okay. I will tell them right there, that doesn't add up. Okay, because you can't have everything and not everything created at the same time. It just doesn't add up. There's a massive flaw to it. Okay, I had a guy approach me the other day. Absolutely there, Chad. As I'm sure you figured out, and for those of you that are listening, off topic, off topic, I prefer working with questions that people actually have. Even on my own podcast here, or vlog, or whatever you want to call it. It technically could be. Okay, the funny part about it is Chad's just asking, he says, Randall Carlson said a reveal of an old technology will be revealed in the next 3 months. Could this be the arcs and limitless energy? It may be. I don't know what they're working on. I can tell you that when we're talking about limitless energy, there is something people are totally overlooking. Okay. And that is the space between molecules. Okay, that's where you got unlimited energy. Now, I'm not the one that can tell you how to make it. how to access it. I can tell you the equipment necessary and what its fundamental purpose is. Do I have the technological capacity to do it? No. Okay, but what we have to understand with limitless energy is every atom, okay, and I'm talking basic grade 8 science. Okay, you take a hydrogen atom, which has one electron. Okay, now we know that one electron goes around the atom. Okay, making it a hydrogen atom. We know there are two going around helium. We also know that electrons seemingly randomly, leave their atom and join up with another one. Well, what this does is if you take a look at that, the hydrogen atom loses an electron. It now is a null atom. It's got no mass to it at all that you can work with. Okay, and if that one single atom, that one single electron connects to another hydrogen atom, it now becomes a helium atom. Okay, and it's that transition, the shock wave through that null space that is left behind by the hydrogen atoms petering out of existence. That energy has mass. I do not know how to measure it. I don't even know who would begin to figure out how to measure it. Okay, but as an electron travels through that space, it creates a shock wave in front of it. Now, by picking up the energy from that shock wave and running it through a system, you can actually get unlimited power, unlimited acceleration, unlimited energy. And if you take the trailing edge and feed it through the back end of the same system, you can slow it down. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, the reality is, Chad, I haven't been in science since grade 8. Well, they threw me out of chemistry and biology. Okay, but it was funny. I was talking to grade 10s a few years back. Well, I talked to the grade 8 teacher, and she goes, "Oh, we don't get them to memorize the periodic table anymore." And I'm like, "Why not?" And she goes, "Well, because it's been deemed unnecessary." Talk to the grade 10 kids of the same year, and they're like, "What do you mean it's not important? It's the backbone of everything we do." And here's the thing with understanding basic science, basic philosophy, and basic math. The basics are what everything is built on. If you don't understand the basics, making advancements is going to be a complication. Okay. I mean, it's great if you know where to find the information. This is fantastic. But I'll tell you, if you're working in a lab and a chemical reaction starts going sour, you may not have time to go over to the book and look up what the information is. You likely require that information right on the tip of your hand in order to stop it. Okay. It's great to be able to go and research. It really is. But you've got to have the baseline knowledge. They really should. I think there's something like, I think I saw a table once, not on Earth, by the way, with 250 elements. Okay. Now, I only took basic science until November of my grade 8 year. Okay, before they threw me out. Okay. They threw me out of my chemistry class because of metabolic complications. But in that period, I ended up memorizing the first, I think, 20 elements in the table. To this day, I still know them. Not that I can do anything with them, but I still know them. Okay, and this is why going back to the old knowledges, going back to the old information is kind of a necessity. Okay, because if we don't go back and relearn some of this stuff, Heaven forbid we have an EMP pulse that wipes out the computers, because most of the information that is necessary in today's world, it will be lost, and we'll be back in the Stone Ages, in a heartbeat. I don't know about you, but not really looking forward to that. The good news, by the way, guys, is this is not alcohol. This is called Canada Dry. But I don't feel like going and making another pot of coffee just yet. I'll be off here in about 20 minutes. But, the funny part about it, when I was growing up, I was lucky where it came to math. The first group of teachers I had wanted to make sure that I knew the answers. The second group wanted to make sure I knew the answers, but also could also show how I came to it. And the third group, wanted the answers. Some worked to show how I got there, but preferably their own. Nowadays, I took a look at a few years back. I looked at the way they're teaching mathematics now, and I'm going, I cannot even help my son deal with it because I don't understand what they're doing. Yeah, I never actually had hangover there, Chad. Had alcohol poisoning twice, which technically is a hangover. But no, I used to mix and match alcohol all the time. Not necessarily one of my best moves. But I am glad you quit drinking. There's nothing wrong with drinking. But like I said, everything in moderation. And you'll notice, especially if you used to drink heavily, it didn't matter how much money somebody had. Alcohol still screwed up their coordination. Too much alcohol still left them with a hangover. On the whole. Wouldn't matter who was drinking, it still had the same side effect. I knew people that would get drunk to the point of blacking out and remembering nothing the night before. Now, I remember one case in particular. I was talking to a total stranger. I'd only just gotten to know her. Right. Now understand, I come from a very different walk of life. This woman was just absolutely bent out of shape. And the DJ asked her, how are you getting home tonight? And she goes, I guess I'm taking a cab. Right. I was just coming by her and I looked at her and I says, well, that'd be kind of stupid. So I'll give you a lift home. You're only 2 blocks out of my way. Right. And she literally was. So she looks at me and looks at the DJ and goes, guess I got it right. So I drove her home. Got her into the house. And we'll use the term got her into the house a little loosely. But she started to get undressed, get ready for bed, and passed out on the couch. And this is where things went a little screwball-y, and they didn't go the way you might think. So she fell over, and I picked her legs up, put them on the couch, and threw a blanket over her. Well, she was an interesting color of gray. Like, she was just way beyond poisoned. So I turned on the coffee pot and sat there the night waiting for her. When she woke up, the first thing she did was she realized she was on her couch. And then she looked under her blanket and goes, I'm still dressed. I said, well, of course you're still dressed. You didn't finish getting undressed. Now, I know from many of your guys' standpoint, that's probably a bizarre setup. It's like, why didn't anything happen? Well, the reason it didn't happen was because of the fact that, number one, in my opinion, she was a wreck and there was no way that there was any consensual anything there. So it was a question of, I had said I was going to make sure she got home safe. She wasn't safe when I left. It was still a good bet she was going to run into trouble. As it turned out, she didn't. But we had a conversation for the longest time that morning. Yeah, and I told her, I said, sorry for going through your place, but you were cold, so I had to go find a blanket. Because that's all I did was I went and found a blanket in her house and put it over top of her on the couch and left her there. Right. And then I just sat and waited for her to wake up. Well, needless to say, by the following morning, right, when she was finally awake, I was pretty much stone cold sober. I'd gone through a pot and a half of coffee. Right. But it was the weirdest setup with her because she was absolutely stunned that nothing had happened. And to me, that's where the real shame was. That was a normal thing for her. This is why I never have looked at them. Why I say I never have looked at the world the same way as other people. I don't know if that makes me better than some people or worse. I don't care. Okay, for me, I was happy with the outcome. It's like there was another time when somebody had been drinking with a couple of people, and they turned around, and this girl comes up, and she goes, if you guys want to carry on drinking, why don't you come over to my place? And I looked at the guy I was drinking with, went, why not? The bar's closing, and we're still in the mood of drinking. So we get halfway to her place, and she looks at me, and she goes, just because I'm taking you back to my place doesn't mean we're crawling into bed together. I looked at her and I said, what gave you the brilliant idea that I wanted to? You said you had alcohol for free that I could drink. That was where my thought line ended. So, well, she took some offense to that, I think. Not that it really mattered. But it was funny because we drank all through the night and just about wiped out her alcohol supply. And then she gets up and goes, how did we get home? I says, well, technically you drove. He says, you did stay between the lines, albeit you were driving a rabbit. Right. So there was a lot of leeway for it. Right. But from my way of looking at it, it's pretty simple. I was offered, at the time, it was simple. If somebody offered me a drink, I'd drink it. If somebody offered me either cocaine or marijuana, I was right into it. No problem at all. Well, only technically. She was one of the waitresses, and there was one more waitress there, and the DJ. Like there were a couple of other staff there. And no, I don't take that as being rude. She was closing shift. And since I kind of lived at the bar at the time, to me it was just a rational thing. Why pay for a cab when I literally lived 2 blocks from her? So I mean, it just boiled down to me, it was just a practicality thing. Okay. And no, in answer to the other side of that, nothing ever did happen between us. As a matter of fact, she's the one girl I spent any time with. I spent close to a year with her. Right. Getting her off the drugs and alcohol. I took her from that state. And by spending time around her with the way I looked at the world, within a year, we had her off the drugs, off the alcohol, half owner of a house and engaged to be married to somebody else. Okay. That was one of those situations, and she was quite frankly, on top of being a waitress, she was also a hairdresser. So she knew how to carry herself, how to present herself. But my interest was, when I first met her, I heard from her that she had a severe drug and alcohol problem and she wanted out. Well, my parents had always made it clear. Never assess somebody's life if you never walked a mile in their shoes. Well, I'd never been in her shoes. So I dove in with both feet and went from virtually no alcohol and absolutely no drugs to a 26er night. And I quit counting the lines of cocaine after 6. Right. To this day, I don't touch drugs. Okay. Never had any draw to them. And alcohol, I drink twice, sometimes three times a year. And that's it. Yeah, I mean, I like the flavor, and like I still like my rye neat, right? Which is what I end up drinking on on Christmas and New Year's. And then once in a while, on July 27th, I'll have a shot of Drambuie, which was my father's drink of choice. Yeah, it was bad. I mean, those days, Chad, I would work. I'd work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then I'd get off by 8 o'clock. I'd be in the bar, and I wouldn't be out of the bar until like 3, 4 in the evening in the morning. And then I'd go back to work. But I did find a cure for hangovers. If you never sober up, you don't get a hangover. By the way, that's a bad way of looking at it. Worked like a charm for me, just not a good idea. So I mean, these are things, like I said, I'm not perfect by any functional stretch. But I've always looked at people from every walk of life the same way. Like, I remember sitting in the bar one day and somebody was kind enough. The guy looks at me. At the time, okay, and this would be back in the 80s. So at the time, there were only like 3 black people in Kelowna. Right. And the BC Lions came into town. They brought their entire team in. And somebody in the bar looks at me and goes, why don't you go up to that great big linebacker and call him a coon? I just looked at him and I went, I looked at the guy telling me that, and I said, well, I was thinking of living through the night, but do what you will. Because I'm looking at this guy going, he outweighs, I mean, heck, his arms were bigger than my waistline was. And I'm thinking, why would you even consider being that rude to somebody? I did end up talking to the guy. I don't remember what his name was. But you got to realize that at that time, I'd only just gotten to Kelowna. And the BC Lions used to practice in Comox, which was my hometown. But they used to practice in on a field called Lewis Park, which during their training was always under 3 feet of water. Anywhere from 1.5 feet to 3 feet. So, of course, when these guys came into town, I did end up talking to the guy, to a couple of them. I said, so how do you find training on dry land? And they looked at me and, what do you mean? So I explained the issue of Lewis Park. And you got to remember, if you're training in 3 feet, in 1.5 feet of water, number one, your ability to run without any resistance is phenomenal. Okay. And this is why they had such phenomenal workmanship there, that particular team. Now, I don't watch sports. I got nothing against it. But I'm pretty black and white. Whenever I've looked at any sport game, yeah, no doubt. No doubt there at all, Joe. My problem is I have strange dreams without the alcohol. But I take a look at it, and any game that I've ever looked at, any sports game that I've ever looked at, I have never missed which team was going to win. Not ever. Okay. And now I shouldn't say I haven't. There have been a couple that have been ties. But when there has been a winner, I have never once missed a team in which team was going to win. Okay. And no, I do not bet on sports at all. Mind you, you'll understand that in a hurry. Because to my way of thinking, the team that's going to win is the one that has the most points at the end of the game. There's your winner. Whether it's 1 point above or 15 points above, it doesn't matter. The one with the most points wins. This is why I don't bet on them, because I don't know which one's going to have the most points. But I mean, I have watched sports, but needless to say, growing up with a bad leg, you don't do a whole lot of running. By the way, Joe, if you think you get a lot of strange dreams with alcohol, see what happens when you do too much drugs. No, you really shouldn't. Okay. I've run into some interesting situations in my life. But again, when we look at people, people go through the same problems. Doesn't matter how much, who you are, doesn't matter how much money you've got. Too much alcohol will screw up your coordination. Okay. Too many drugs will cause problems with your cognitive capacity. These are just realities that affect everybody. And the amount of money you've got and whoever you vote for, whoever you live and that you are following in the political arena doesn't matter. You're still going to have the same kind of complications. I got asked an absolutely stupid question in my eyes the other day. Somebody asked me one day, just yesterday or the day before, I'm dating this guy. He's heavily into politics. I don't like politics at all. Is our relationship going to work? And like I told her, I said, if you're not into politics and he's that heavily into it and he's making a career of it, the odds are no. Carl, how are you? See, I'm a firm believer that sports aren't fixed. Okay. There are trends, don't get me wrong, there can be somewhere people are paid to throw a game. Okay. But when we look at the way that the world was built, okay, that reality was put together, yes, you can look at gematria and you can get a gauge on what's going on. But the fact that freedom of choice exists eliminates it being fixed. Okay, in my opinion anyway. Now, I don't understand enough about the intricacies of gematria to be able to speak to it too terribly coherently. I do know enough about the specifics on Western astrology to be able to punch holes in it that make me question everything about it. Okay. But then again, I got into the Amway system fast enough and deep enough to question it as well. I'm a firm believer that you can find patterns in everything, but you've got to leave room for that exception. Okay. An obvious exception, from my standpoint, is most of the time when you're diagnosed dead, when your heart stops cold and stays that way for a while, that's the end of the game. Well, that happened to me when I was 5. And it stopped long enough for them to ship me off to the morgue. Now, that, if you take a look at standard patterning, that should have been the end of it. The reality is, I got into the morgue, woke up and left. There are so many things I would love to look into, and I just don't have the time. Given the projects I'm currently working on, I don't have enough time in my life left to look into all of it. But what I have found is most of the time when people get caught up in a belief structure, okay, what ends up happening in most people's cases is they start fitting everything to that bill. Now, somebody approached me the other day and offered to do a Vedic astrology chart for me. And I looked at the guy and I went, yeah, I don't know enough about it. It would be fascinating. Right. So I gave him the information. And he says, this is what it's going to cost. I says, no, you misunderstand. I'm not paying a penny towards getting it done. Am I curious? Yes. Does it matter enough to me to pay for it? No. So I thought it was pretty clear. I said, I'm not paying anything. So what did this genius do? He came back to me with a reduced price. So I wrote back and I says, what didn't you get? I'm not paying anything. Oh, and Joe, on that note, and Joe's just saying, I do believe in God to the best of my ability. I just don't go to church as often as I should with my dad. And he goes every Sunday morning. I will tell you, in spite of what you've heard me say, or in addition to, I am 100%, I am 100% believer in both God, the Creator, and Jesus. I haven't set foot in a church in decades. Okay, but I still believe wholeheartedly in both, probably more so than many people. But let us not forget, and your father will back this one up for you. In the Bible, assuming you're using the Christian Bible, in the Bible, like in the King James 5th edition, okay, I think it's 5th edition, but the King James Version, it tells you in the Bible, wherefore two or more are gathered in my name, there am I. It says nothing about you have to go to a building. Okay, so if you sit down and you talk to your dad about God, you're in church right there. You're already going. Okay, the building has nothing to do with it. Okay, the other thing to keep in mind is it tells you somewhere in there, and I cannot tell you the passage. Okay, but it tells you somewhere in there, and the church raised its arms unto the heavens and raised its voice unto the angels above. Well, I have never in my life seen a building that actually does that, except if you look at your physical body, at your body, and call that the church. Then you've got a building you can work with. Okay, but do I believe wholeheartedly in God? Do I believe in Jesus? Absolutely. Okay, and every one of the races I dealt with, I think every one of them, believe in their own version of the same thing. Many of them by similar names, but certainly by similar abilities. Okay, and that ultimately, when you look at your belief, okay, the important here is believe what you will, but don't try forcing your belief on somebody else. Okay, will I answer questions honestly to people? Well, you get to figure that one out. God knows I've been asked a number of questions that were a little off. Okay, but the reality of it is that we have to take a look at the world that we're living in and find the similarities between people. Focus on the commonalities, not on the differences. Now, on that note, I'm starting to feel better, so I will be back again in the very near future, hopefully tomorrow. But I'm going to bring this to a close now. And thank you once again for joining me. Thanks so much for the support and especially all the well wishes. Okay. And I will catch up with you again. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.